Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to part 3 of my tutorial for the deployment coding assignment on the Easy University project. In part 3, we're really going to do the deployment. So, parts 1 and 2, we got the code ready on our development machine, and we committed all those changes to our local copy of the repository, and we pushed them all up to the remote repository. And now we're ready to deploy. And the way I have it in the instructions, it's a 9-step process. So we're going to do approximately 9 steps. We're going to be deploying to Python Anywhere, and what you see is you see me logged into my account at Python Anywhere, and you'll notice that my user ID, at least of the one I'm using for the current semester, is Trainer1. Okay, and something that I want you guys to do, in addition to deploying to Python Anywhere, I want you to set me as your teacher. And how do you do that? Well, it's always interesting to figure this out. Here's how you do this, at least in the current configuration of the website. You go up to the toolbar and you click on account. Okay. And then in the tabs, click on teacher. Okay. And you enter your teacher's username. And my username at this point is Trainer1. And if you've already sent your username to somebody else, there's a way to click on an X to delete that, or perhaps you have to type over it. But this is changeable, right? So you're going to have to do that. In fact, if you're there now and you haven't set your username to your teacher's username to Trainer1, this is a good time to do it. Okay. And what does that allow me to do? Well, that allows me to look at the files that you deployed. So when I go to my Files tab, I not only see, if I go to my home directory, I can not only see my files, but I can see everybody who's set me up as their teacher. And that's what that allows me to do. So, whether I can change your files or not doesn't really matter, because I would never do that. But I just want to peek at your installation and see that you have everything in the right place. In addition, I'm also going to go and visit your web application as you have it configured. So how do you get to the web application? Well, there's a couple of issues with that. One is that to configure it, you click on the web tab. In this lower Python Anywhere menu, you click on web. And if you've configured a web app like I have, you can see I've got one web app, which is all you're allowed to get on a free account. And the domain name for the host is trainer1.pythonanywhere.com. And this is how it works on a free account. You can't add a second one. If you try to, it tells you, you can do that if you upgrade your account, which means you have to pay. So what I'm eventually going to have to do when it comes time to configure my web application is I'm going to have to come back here and delete the web app that's already configured. That's my practice version. As I often refer to in the tutorials, it's my already baked version. Okay. And if you go all the way to the bottom, you're able to delete it. Okay. And that's what we're going to do, but not just quite now. And then to really go and experience the application, how do you do that? Well, let's go do that. You just go to the URL that we just said, trainer1.pythonanywhere.com, and here's my application. Okay, and I probably didn't. I probably didn't put as much test data into it as I would like you to do. I just wanted to make sure I could get it installed, and now, since we're going to delete it, I'm not going to put a lot of extra effort into it. Okay, all right. So that's where we are. Uh, so the other thing that you need, in addition to a configured web app, is you need a console. So how do you see your consoles? Well, there's a tab on the menu for consoles. Okay, and we want a Linux Bash console, and I have a console here. So once you create a console and work in it, it persists in your list of consoles. Oh, okay, so the one that's here is the one that's currently running my web app. So let's go take a peek at that. All right, and it's building that. Takes a little bit of time. And now I can say that I want to do an ls to see the directory. And what I have installed here is I've got my first blog, which is what I think the Django Girls blog is called. And then I've got the practice version of my Easy University. This is what I called my already baked version. Okay, and what I'm eventually going to have is the real version of my Easy University, which I'm just going to put as the third thing in this directory. Could I delete the other ones that I'm not currently running? I could, but I'm not going to do it. All right, great. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hit the back button and come back up here. And I want to make sure that I get a clean start. So right now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to delete the Bash console here. It says it's killing it. I'm going to go over to web. And what's interesting is simply by deleting the Bash console, I killed the web app. I killed the configuration for the web app, the whole thing. So I didn't have to go down the bottom and do the delete because the console was I guess, the manifestation of that configured app, and now it's gone. Okay, so there's two ways to get rid of it, actually. Good. So again, let's go back to consoles. And if you want a new Bash console, you just go under Start New Console. Under the Other category, click on Bash. And it takes a little while to warm it up, not too long. And you should be in your home directory. You can tell you're in your home directory by this tilde that's here. Tilde is a shortcut path name for your home directory. So your home directory is probably under, /home, your username, all that kind of stuff. But you can refer to it with the tilde. Okay, and if we do an ls again to list the directories, I've got a readme text, the Django Girls blog, and the practice copy of Easy University. Okay, so what's the first thing that I need to do? I need to clone my project repository. Okay, well, how am I going to do that? Well, in my class, I've recommended that you work with Bitbucket. So if I go to Bitbucket, I'm going to go to my Bitbucket account. I go to bitbucket.org. Okay. And let's see if I can log in here. Log in. And oh, here's the version that I want. So I've got my practice, and now I've got my Easy University one. So this is my real project. So I click on it, and up in the right hand corner, there's a button called Clone. If I go to that, it gives me the whole command line that I'm going to need to clone it. So there's a little icon to click on to copy that text onto the clipboard. So I do that, I close that, and then when I go back, I can just go right into my console, and I can paste that in with I'm on the Mac, so I use a Command V, but you could use a Control V on Windows. And you've got the clone command right there. And then the only thing you need to know is your password for your Bitbucket account, which in theory you needed to know to log on to the Bitbucket account when we were just on the web app. So we're going to run that. It's going to ask me for my password. We put that in. And now it's bringing down the repository. Okay, and if I do an ls again, we'll see that I've got now another directory here in my home directory, Trainer Kevin Easy University. So you should be following along, and at this point, you should have your copy of your Easy University project. So there are a lot of things that we could do to look through what we just brought down. One easy way to do it is to go to the file manager that's part of Python Anywhere. So let's just do that. In the upper right hand corner, I've got a sort of a hamburger icon for the menu. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm just going to say that I want to go to the files page. And I want to look at my Trainer Kevin Easy University project. And you can see a number of things. One is you can see it's got a Git a directory that holds the metadata. So it is a proper Git repository. Among the things that are on the top level, the directories, we've got the idea, which is just the metadata from PyCharm, course info, which is our app, and this Trainer Kevin Easy University, which holds our configurations for the project. And these individual files, .gitignore is the gitignore file. I kept my database under version control. Okay, so I've got that here. I don't want it here, so I'm going to get rid of it in a second. And then we've got the manage.py file. Okay, so we don't want to use the copy of the database that came from development. We want to create a new database in this production environment. So I'm just going to go to DB SQLite 3, and I'm going to come over here to the right to the trash can, and I'm going to delete it. And am I sure? Yeah, I want to do that. So I only put that under version control because it helps me manage the versions of my courseware. Um, uh, so that's it. And while we're here and while we're looking at the files and we're thinking about these as a repository, I want to describe the workflow that I think works the best for working with code on your server. Okay. Uh, Most people feel that it is okay to make to do things like I just did. Like if you don't want a copy of a file from your repository, and you've either cloned your repository on your server or you've pulled the changes down. Is it okay to delete a file on your server? Yeah, that's probably fine. You're not changing the repository. Okay. Now, uh, do people make changes to code on the server and then commit them and push them up to the remote repository? I would say most people don't. So the general workflow here is that you make changes to your code on your development machine. So let's say you're working on the deployment on your server and you realize that you have a mistake in your code that's not working in production. Then probably what I would recommend to do, and what probably most people would, is go back to your development machine, make the changes using PyCharm, test those to make sure that they work, commit the changes, push them up to the remote copy of the repository, and then come back to your server and pull them down again. So, how would you pull them? Well, pretty easy. We're just going to go back to our consoles, and we're going to click on our bash console. Okay. Now, how do you pull changes to your repository? Well, you don't do it up at the level of the home directory. Okay, you have to actually get into the directory for your repository to do a pull. So I would do a CD for change directory and then the name of my repository. Mine's called Trainer Kevin Easy University. Okay. And you can tell that I'm in a repository because it says I'm on the master uh, uh, I'm on the master path. Okay. And if I do an ls, you can see all the parts. Uh, and you can see here that we've got manage.py, but we don't have a copy of the database because I decided I didn't want that, even though I had somewhat foolishly placed that under version control. So how do I pull? Well, right here at the top of the repository, I just say Git Pull. All right. And then it's going to ask me for the password for my Bitbucket account. And I'm just going to put it in again. And it's going to pull it. Okay. and it says it's already up to date. Okay, so any changes that I made back on my development machine and I pushed up to the remote server um, are going to be pulled down here. Okay, and if I do an ls, you can see one of the interesting aspects, and I had kind of forgotten this, and I like this. I deleted the database, and now when I did the pull, even though the database file is on the remote repository, and I deleted it here, it's not going to override my delete. But if I had added some files, uh, and it committed them to the repository and pushed them up, or I had changed some files, I could actually pull them down here. Okay, so generally speaking, make your changes on your development machine, commit them and push them, and then come over here and pull them down. Okay. Um, that isn't to say you can't make changes here and commit and push them up. It's just that I don't think that most people do that. Certainly, I don't. Okay, so we cloned our repository. That was step 2 from our instructions. Now we need to create a properly configured virtual environment. Okay, now I'm generally following the instructions that I got from Python Anywhere. And I'm gonna find my way to those. I have a link to them on our weekly schedule for the course that I'm teaching right now in the current semester. So if I go to here, where is it? It's on the week before. And okay, so it's this third link that I have here. So Python Anywhere, at least right now, have a document on the site deploying an existing Django project to Python Anywhere, and this is a link that works today. Okay. So again, I'm basically following the instructions that they have here. I didn't uh, invent this. Okay, and you'll notice. So the first thing was to get our code. So we cloned our code. The next thing is to create a virtual environment. Now, in my class, we've been working with Anaconda Navigator, and what they recommend here is you use the traditional virtual env. Okay. Now we could use uh, an Anaconda virtual machine. In fact, I think the last one that I used Anaconda. But I just wanted to show you that these virtual environments are pretty much interchangeable, provided that you feed them the same list of requirements that have to be installed. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow these instructions from Python Anywhere and use virtual env. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a virtual env. Okay. And then we're going to say dash dash Python, all these things. We don't want to run Python 3.4. We want Python 3.6. And then this is going to be the name of the virtual environment. And I'm going to use my typical naming scheme. I'm going to call it E4 Easy University. Okay, so let's just take this text, okay, and come back and type it in here. Okay. So the question is, do I want to be in my project? I don't think it's going to hurt to be in my project. So let's just give it a try. Okay, so let's go back. This is okay. We don't want 3.4, we want 3.6. And that's not the name of our virtual env. I'm going to use my E4 Easy University. E4 Easy University. Okay, and that should build my virtual environment. And let's just see that work. Now, in the instructions, it kind of warns you that some of these activities that you do at the command line could take a while, and one of the reasons is that we're just kind of working on a borrowed machine here. This is a shared computing environment. We're not paying, so we're only getting so many services for free. Okay, and so we can see that it built the virtual environment, right? It called it E4 Easy University, and it activated it. Well, that's terrific. Okay, now we're going to want to install. Since we're in the virtual environment, we can simply run a pip install in order to install the things that we want. Okay, so we're not going to do a pip install Django because we actually have a file that has the requirements in it. Okay, so where is that file? Let's find our way down to it. Okay, I believe it is a couple of levels down. So let's go down into this Trainer Kevin Easy University. That's got generally the settings and configuration files in it. So CD Trainer Kevin Easy University. Okay, so now we're already down there. Let's do an ls to see what's there. We have a directory that holds these requirements files. Okay, so let's do a CD to that, CD requirements. Okay, and let's do an ls. And I just have a base version of the requirements, so it's called base.txt. So how do you run a pip install from a requirements file? Well, you just say pip install -r and then the name of the file. Now, if you're not in the directory where the file is, you're going to have to type in the whole path name. But of course, I navigated to that directory, so I'm going to be okay. So I'm going to paste this in. Okay, but mine's not called requirements.txt. Mine's called base.txt. BASE.txt. Okay, so I'm going to hit return. And it's installing things from the requirements list. Now, here's another place that they warn you that things go kind of slowly. So I'm going to put you on pause so we don't have you waiting for too long. I'll be back when these pip installs are done. Okay, so that took several minutes, and you can see that the line that came up right before the prompt where we are successfully installed Django 2.1.1, certify, Chardet, docopt, idna, pites, requests, URL lib 3, yarg. Those are all things that we asked for. Okay, and if we say, for instance, pip freeze, this will list the current state, and this should match uh, what we had um, in our list of requirements that we generated over in the development machine. Okay, so we've got that done. Okay, we have a properly configured virtual environment and it's been activated. So that's good. Okay. Um, and I am going to jump ahead a bit. Okay. And I am going to no, I'm actually going to change the order. I'm going to go with the order here. Okay. I'll change the instructions before I send this all out. So we have a virtual env. Okay. So the next thing I want us to do is to set up our web app and WSGI file. Okay. So we're going to need three things: the path to the Django project's top folder. We know that. The name of our project. We know that. And the name of our virtual environment. We called ours E for Easy University. Okay, so we're going to head on over to the Web tab. Oh, and by the way, how do I see all that? I've been looking at these instructions that I showed you. Okay, so this is a good thing. Again, where is that? That's it. Help.pythonanywhere.com pages deploy existing Django project. Okay, that's where all this is coming from. So we want to go over to the Web tab, and we're going to manually configure a Django project. Okay, so let's do that. So how do you get to the Web tab? Again, if you go to the upper right and click on the hamburger for the menu, and then you can click on Web. Okay. And so we're going to want to add a new web app. Okay. Oh, I see. This is interesting. I did not really delete my web app. It's here. It's just a very small. So I'm going to click on my trainer1.python anywhere, and now I'm going to go down to the bottom. I'm going to delete it. So it didn't automatically delete. That's probably good. Yes, I really want to delete it. Okay, so I have no web apps. Okay, so let's click on the Add New Web App button. Okay, and the domain name is just going to be the same one I was using before, my ID, trainer1.pythonanywhere.com. Okay, next. And do what? So what? We're going to choose. We're going to choose manual configuration. Even though this is a Django app, we're going to confuse. We're going to confuse. Yes, we certainly are. We're going to choose manual configuration. Okay, and Python 3.6 is the one that we're using, so that's good. And we're going to go to the next panel. And that's taken a little bit. Okay, now here's the configuration panel for our uh, application. Okay, so again, let's refer to the instructions. What's the first thing we're going to set? We're going to set the virtual environment. Well, where is our virtual environment? Well, because we use virtual env, it's going to be under home, my username. That's my home directory. Then there's a hidden directory called .virtualenvs. And then within that, there's a directory for my virtual environment. And of course, ours is called E for Easy University. Okay. All right. So let's go do that. So let's go down. Okay. And let's go to our virtual env. Let's make this text a little bigger. Uh, Maybe not quite that big. Let's go one down from there. Okay, so our virtual env is here, and we're just going to put in the path. Okay, and so what's the path going to be? Well, it's going to be slash home slash our username trainer1 dot virtual envs, okay, with an S, slash virtual environment name, E for Easy University. Okay, and I'm going to click on that check mark, and that looks like it's okay. All right, very good. Now, what are we going to do next? Well, we're going to enter the path to our code. Okay, this is, I'm sorry. I was pulling the instructions document and didn't quite get it onto my monitor. Here we are. So we want to enter a path to our code. You don't particularly have to give it the path to your source code. That kind of allows you to go and work with your source code in this web app. I typically don't configure that, but I do configure the working directory. Okay, so let's go do that. So, what's my working directory? So my working directory is home trainer1. So this is the directory. That's essentially my home directory. What's my WSGI configuration file? Well, it's this one here. Var www trainer1 underscore python anywhere underscore com underscore wsgi.py. Okay. Now, I picked up some of these without having to type them in. I think because I already had this configured before. Okay, so you might have to type in your version of these. Okay, if that makes sense. All right, so that's got me far enough. Now I have to fill in my wsgi.py file. Now we do have a wsgi.py file on in our project. Okay, and we probably eventually want to put the code that's we put here we probably would eventually want to put that uh, into our into the whiskey.py file that's in our own project. But what we're going to do is we're just going to do this the Python Anywhere way, and they've actually pre-configured a file. And the part of the instructions I'm doing now is where it says edit your WSGI file. Okay. And it shows you the things that you have to turn on and configure in the Django part of the whiskey.py file. Okay, so let's just go do that. How do we get to the whiskey.py file here? Well, you just click on the link and it opens up an editor. And there we are. And there are lots of different kinds. You can, this server will run a Django app, it will run a Flask app. Okay, so we want to go to the part that's for a Django app. Okay, and we want to activate the appropriate lines. Okay, so if we highlight these two lines, this import OS and import sys, and then we toggle the comment off, it'll activate those lines. Okay, and what's the next thing that we want to do? Well, it's all this path stuff. Okay, so what should our path look like? Well, I'm going to copy the lines out of my already baked version. There are 3 lines here that we need to get to work. Okay, that in here it's line 81, 82, 83. So I'm just going to copy over and show you what I did. I created these by uncommenting them and changing the values. But here's how they should look. Okay, so the path is just the path to your overall project. Now, in my previously baked version, it was the practice directory, but it isn't anymore. And then this code below it is just, I didn't change the code, you just have to uncomment it. Okay. Okay. Now, you have to point it to your proper settings file. Okay. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to come down here to this line number 85, and we're going to what you're going to do is you're going to toggle it on and change the value that points to your settings file. Well, what does your settings file look like? Well, here's the one that you want. Okay, so again, I'm copying this out of my already baked version. All right. Okay, so again, I toggled off the comment, and I've got trainer Kevin Easy University. This is the directory that's inside my overall project that holds my project settings and configurations. Then the settings sub directory, and then the settings.py file that's called production. Okay, that's the one that you want. Okay, well, hang on. That's good. All right, and that's it. That's all you're gonna. That's all you're gonna have to change. Oh, there's one more. Line number 88. And again, how did I get these? I got this from the instructions. Okay. Okay, and what am I going to do? Lines 88 and 89 have to be toggled on. Okay, so that this is what really activates the application. All right. So that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not how you save it. How do you save it? You click on the upper right, save. Okay. So now we've done that. We've configured WSGI.py. All right. What else do we have to do? Okay, so the instructions again say that the next thing to do uh, uh, is to set up the database. Okay. Um, oh, and it does say here to save the file, then go hit the reload button for your domain. I didn't do that the last time, and it wasn't the end of the world. But when we do the database setup, here's where we have to run manage.py. Okay. Now, remember this. Okay. When we run manage.py, we have to tell it where to find the proper settings file. Okay. So we'll do that in a minute. So this is the reload button, I guess, right up here. That's what it's telling us to run. And did we reload it? Yep, we reloaded it. Okay, so let's go back to our consoles. Okay, go back into our console. Okay. And even though we don't run the development server, which is part of, gets run by manage.py in the production environment, we do use a lot of other functions of manage.py. So let's go up a couple of levels to get in the top of our project. So we're all the way down to requirements. Let's go cd ... that goes up a level. We're at the directory that holds all the requirements and configuration. cd ... again, up a level. This looks like the directory that holds our overall project. So let's just do an ls to see the directory. Yeah, so we've got course info, manage.py, trainer, k, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's good. So now what we want to do is we want to run the migrations. Okay. So we don't have a database file. We don't have one of those SQLite 3 database files. So it's going to create a new one for us when we run the migrations. But before we run the migrations, I'm going to show the migrations. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So how can I run this? Well, let's look at the details. And I've got this thing. For some reason, I just seem to be able to get this almost onto my machine. Okay. So we can say manage.py migrate. Okay. But we have to put the settings file there. So we're not going to do migrate. We're going to show migrations. So let's try that. So let's say /manage.py migrate, not migrate, show migrations, --settings. Okay, so where are we? We're in the overall directory. So we want to have it's going to be /trainer Kevin Easy University. That's the the directory that holds the settings and the configuration slash settings slash production. That's it. So let's run it. And it didn't like that. No module named production. Okay, so maybe I have to put production.py. I'll be right back. Let me give it a try and I'll be right back. Okay, well, I found it. Okay, how did I find it? Well, I went to the article that I was following for how to set up multiple settings files. And that's the article that I gave my students a link to. It's by Vitor Freitas, Django Tips, working with multiple settings modules. And when you go down the bottom, he has the syntax for running this. Let me find my way to it. I had it. Oh, how to use it. Okay. So running the manage.py I had fine. But then the syntax for the settings, dash dash settings equal. Okay. A lot of these things don't have the equal sign in their syntax. And then you have the directory that holds all the settings and configuration files, dot subdirectory settings dot settings dot file settings dot py file production. Okay, so what did that turn into for me? Well, it turned into I ran it dot slash manage py show migrations, and then here's the settings. So dash dash settings equal, and then the directory that holds the settings and configuration, trainer Kevin Easy University dot settings dot production. Okay, so let me run that right here, and there is my show migrations. Okay, I'm sorry that took so much, but that syntax where you tell it to find the settings file is a little different than a lot of the other syntax for how to set options on Linux commands. Okay, it's good. So these are all the migrations that have to be applied. Okay, let's apply them. Okay, well, let's do this. I'm just going to go back to that command. Instead of show migrations, I'm just going to turn that into migrate. Make sense? Migrate. Okay, so it applied all the migrations. Okay, now, you may remember that when we were testing this procedure on our development machines that we tried this migration, and it appeared to work right up and including this migration 12, create group permissions. And yet then we looked at the database, we saw that the group permissions were not actually there. Well, my experience has been that the same thing happens on this production server. So my workaround, and I suggest it to you, is to migrate back one migration, back one off. So how do we do that? Well, we say migrate course info 0011. Okay, so that's going to back off one. Let's do that. Back one out. And then let's run it forward again. We shouldn't have to do this. It's probably a slight bug in either the code that I did for the migration or the runner for the migration engine. I don't know. And now, okay, so now we're going to go back to level 12. And in my experience, that reapplication of it gets the group permissions into the database. So now we have a database that's pretty close to what we want. Okay, does it have everything that we want? Well, yes and no. Okay. We don't have all the users that we're going to need. All right. So how are we going to get the users that we're going to need? Well, we need a super user. So let's, again, let's go back up one. Let's get a copy of the command that we just had. Okay, and I'm going to back up over it and change it into a create super user. Okay? This is easier for me than having to type these out all over again. So I'm going to back up. And I'm just going to say create super user. Okay. And it says what's the username. And we've been using tester. Okay. What's the email address? I don't care. I leave that out. The password, lowercase secret in parens. Remember? Okay, and then let's put it in again. Okay, so we have a super user. Now, have we done everything that we need to do? Pretty close. We haven't collected the static files. So let's just leave our console here and let's go to the files tab. Okay. Now, if we look in our Easy University project, underneath it, we have a directory with the course info app. We have a directory with the settings and the configuration app. But there's no directory called static, even though we had done a collect static on our development machine. Well, why hasn't that copied through to here? Well, it hasn't copied through to here because it's not under version control. Okay. And it's not under version control because people usually don't, when you really think of it, this is a duplicate copy of all the static files. It just happens to be in one place to make them easy to serve. And there's no real reason to keep the duplicate under version control because you have the individual static directories in each of the apps that are under version control. Okay, so how do we do a collect static? Well, it's pretty easy. Let's just go back to our consoles. Go back to our bash console. Okay, and we've got a line here that we've been using over and over again to run manage.py. So I'm going to just do the up arrow to get that back. And instead of create super user, I'm just going to do a collect static. So I'm going to back up here and do a collect static. All one word, collect static. Okay, and let's see that work. 123 files were copied. And let's just do an ls here to see what the directories are. And there's our static subdirectory. So we have that now. Okay, that's pretty good. All right. Have we done all the parts of what we have to do? Let's go back to the instructions for Python Anywhere and look. Do we have everything that we need? Okay. Just going to bring that down here so if I can get it all the way down this time. Very good. Okay. So we set up the database. Okay, that's good. Additional configuration. Okay. There's a help page on static files and Django's for instructions on how to set up static file serving. Okay, so we have. Let's just click through on that. Okay, so let's see. It told us to set up the proper settings in our settings file for collect static. We did that when we're in our development machine. Okay, it tells us to run collect static. That's good. Okay, it's not really pointing us to the place where I wanted to go. The place where I wanted to go was, let's go back again here, click on the hamburger, and go back to web. There is a place to configure the static files right on here, and it's down at the bottom. Okay, and how do we do this? So let's click on enter URL. Okay, and the URL is usually /static / okay, and then we need to enter the path. Okay, and what are we entering the path of? Well, we're entering the path of the directory where we just collected all that stuff. Now, I'm going to copy this from my already baked version and paste it in here. And it's almost right. Okay, so it's in my home directory, right? So let's just go through all the different parts. Okay, home, my user ID, the directory that holds my project, trainerk.easyuniversity. Okay, now it's not the practice one anymore, so I need to get that off. That was just part of my previously baked version. And the very last part is the static directory. So I'm going to click that. Now, some people reported to me that they couldn't get the static file serving to work. Okay. Well, you really have to coordinate three things. You have to get the settings in your settings.py properly configured. Okay, and two, you have to do a collect static to collect the static files all up into one place, and then three, you have to come down here and put the URL entry that you set in your settings file, which is typically /static/. And then you have to point to their directory where you collected up all this static files. Okay, and why do you have to do this? Well, remember, we're not using the development server anymore. Okay, so what we're actually doing here is we're configuring for the front end HTTP server, which I don't think it's Apache here, it's probably Nginx. Okay, it's actually doing the serving. So this, when we click on these things here, we're telling it when URLs come through that match this, serve them directly. Don't even pass them through to the Django server. Okay, and now we're finally doing that. Okay. Now you can to try to set security. I don't know whether you can use HTTPS without a certificate. I think you need a certificate, and you probably have to pay for that. It says it's disabled. That's probably only going to work in the pay version. Okay. So this should be pretty good here. We should have all the things that we need. So now what do? How do we get all these configurations to be taken? Well, let's reload the web app. Okay. And then let's just go to the application. It should be running. So let's go over to the application. All right. Let's make sure it's really running. I'm going to do a reload. And yes, that's good. So let's try to log in. Okay. I've got a bunch of names I can log in. And I have a clerk and registrar and all those people yet? No, I haven't set them up yet. So if we try to log in, it's not going to find it. Okay, but do I have tester? Yes, I do. And again, I'm using the Chrome browser, so it's actually saved a lot of information about my users because I allowed it to. So I'm not going to have to type in quite so much. I hope that works for you. So tester, of course, it's got that paren lowercase secret password. If I log into that, I can log into everything. So, okay, what data should I have? Well, not very much. Should I have instructors? No, I don't have instructors because we took that test data migration out of the migration chain. Do I have sections? Not yet. Do I have courses? Not yet. Do I have semesters? Yes, we do because we left that in. Only the ones that we added on, 2019 and 2020. So we may have to add a couple more in. Do I have students? No, I don't, because I took them out of the chain of the migrations. Do I have registrations? No, I don't. Okay, and I don't have all the users I need, so let's go get the users that we need first. So let's go up to the URL. Okay, and let's go up to the URL and go to admin, ADMIN. And here we are. So we're a proper super user now. A tester is a super user. And if we look at the list of users, if we click on this, a tester is the only user. Okay, so what are the users that we need to add? Well, the ones that we had before. Clerk, coworker, registrar, scheduler, and sysadmin. And we did this in a previous assignment. This is the work that we did in I think the migrations assignment, so you would have to go back to that and you could follow the tutorial for that, but I'm going to do it here again. So I'm going to click on add user, and let's say I want to add clerk, and lucky for me it's already here in my browser cookies or whatever. probably not technically a cookie. So the password's already set. Come down here, click on clerk again. Okay, save. All right, come down to the bottom. It's click yes for staff status. Don't click super user. What group do we put it in? Put it in CI user. Click across to the right side. So that's fine. And go down here and say save and add another. Okay, so what's the second one that we want to do? Coworker. It has that same secret password. Okay, save it. Okay. Now the only thing that a coworker has is it's part of staff. It's not a super user. It's not part of any of our groups. This is a user from some other application. Okay? And then let's go back to and save and add another. Okay. And now here's the next one. The registrar that gets the secret password. Do the registrar again. Save. Okay. They're staff, so click staff status. They're part of the registrar group. Get that over to the right. That's the only group that they're in. So we're going to save and add another. The next one's the scheduler. Okay, it gets the password. Click on the scheduler again. Save. Okay, so it's got staff status. Okay, it's part of the scheduler group. Get that over to the right. Okay. Save and add another. And the last one's going to be sysadmin. Okay. And I don't have the password here, so it's going to get that lowercase secret in the parens. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing here. Lowercase secret in the parens. That means that both you and I will be able to test it. And let's do a save. And what does it get? It's part of staff and it's a super user. We don't have to explicitly add it to groups because as a super user, it can do all the permissions. Okay, and now we're just going to save. Okay, so now we have all of these. Let's go back, let's log out and make sure that they behave the way that they were supposed to. So let's log in as a clerk. Okay. As a clerk, I should be able to see things. Okay. But I shouldn't be able to add anything. That makes sense. Okay, that's good. What about as a coworker? I should only be able to see the About page. That's all I can do. That's perfect. What about as a registrar? As a registrar, I ought to be able to see instructors, sections, courses, semesters, but I also ought to be able to add students. There's my add button. Registrations. There's my add button again. Okay, that looks good. And let's log that out. What's the next one? Well, the scheduler, it's sort of the inverse of the registrar. So the scheduler ought to be able to add instructors, there's the button, sections, there's the button, courses, there's the button, semesters, but it should only be able to see students, no button, registrations, no button. Very good, let's log that out. And then the very last one should be sysadmin. Sysadmin. log them in, and they should be able to do everything. Add for instructors, there's the button. Sections, there's the button. Courses, there's the button. Semesters, there's the button. Students, there's the button. Registrations, there's the button. Good. Now, are you done? Well, not quite yet. You have to put in enough test data so that I can see that your application is working. Okay, how many instructors do you need? Uh, I'd say 4. How many courses do you need? I'd say 4. How many semesters do you need? Well, you would be okay with the ones you have here. If you want to add the more current ones, go ahead and do that. Okay? How many sections? 4. How many students do you need? 4. How many registrations do you need? About 4. Okay? And then, while you're doing that, you ought to be testing the authentication and access and security and all of that kind of stuff. Now, make sure that you've created the users we're expecting, and they all have that paren lowercase secret password. So when I go to test your work, I can do it because I've got the users to log in with, and I'm able to test that they have the proper permissions. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up here. That's it for part 3 on this tutorial. I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.